Good morning, afternoon, everyone. There's a moment in life we've all faced the realization that holding on to someone, whether a friend, partner, or even family member, is doing us more harm than good. It's painful, isn't it? But here's the truth. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever held on to someone longer than you should have? Maybe it was a relationship, a friendship, or even a connection to a family member. You knew deep down that it wasn't healthy anymore, but something made you stay. Perhaps it was loyalty, fear, guilt, or simply the comfort of familiarity. If you've been there, you're not alone. We are wired for connection. As human beings, our greatest strength is our ability to bond with others. These bonds often bring us love, support, and joy. But here's the paradox. The same connections that uplift us can sometimes weigh us down. And the longer we hold on to what no longer serves us, the heavier that weight becomes. Why is it so hard to detach emotionally? The answer lies in our biology and psychology. We form attachments because they create a sense of safety. In the beginning, these attachments feel like anchors, keeping us grounded in life's stormy seas. But what happens when that anchor stops holding us steady and starts dragging us down instead? This is where the need for emotional detachment comes in. Detachment isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's not about shutting people out for the sake of it. Emotional detachment is about recognizing when a connection has turned into a chain and choosing to break free. It's about reclaiming your energy, your time, and your emotional well-being. Think of it this way: your emotions are a precious resource. They fuel your ability to love, create, dream, and thrive. When you're overly attached to someone who drains you, you're pouring that resource into a well that doesn't fill you back up. Over time, this imbalance can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of your sense of self. Here's the key: emotional detachment is not about giving up on others. It's about not giving up on yourself. It's about understanding that your peace, your happiness, and your growth come first. And sometimes putting yourself first means making the hard decision to let go. Detachment is not easy. It's uncomfortable because it forces us to confront our fears: fear of being alone, fear of the unknown, and fear of losing something we thought we couldn't live without. But here's the good news: detachment is also liberating. It's the first step toward rediscovering who you are and creating space for the life you truly deserve. So as we dive into these 5 rules for emotional detachment, keep this in mind. This isn't about pushing someone away out of anger or bitterness. It's about pulling yourself closer to a life that feels lighter, freer, and more aligned with who you are meant to be. Why detach? Because you matter. Your feelings matter. Your peace matters. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Picture this: there's a young woman named Sarah. Sarah has a best friend, Emily. They've been inseparable for years. Through thick and thin, they've shared everything: secrets, dreams, heartbreaks, and laughter. To Sarah, Emily is more than a friend, she's family. But over time, Sarah starts to notice something. Their conversations feel one-sided. Whenever Sarah shares her struggles, Emily seems distant or distracted. But when Emily needs support, Sarah's always there, dropping everything to help. At first, Sarah brushes it off. It's just a phase, she tells herself. Emily is going through a lot. I can't abandon her now. Months turn into years, and the dynamic doesn't change. Sarah feels drained, resentful even, but she pushes those feelings down. After all, isn't loyalty what friendship is all about? But one day, after yet another exhausting interaction, Sarah asks herself a question she's been avoiding. Am I holding on to this friendship out of love or out of fear of losing what we once had? Sarah's story isn't unique, is it? Maybe for you, it's not a friendship, but a romantic relationship. Or perhaps it's a family member who demands more than they give. Whatever the situation, we've all experienced a connection that once brought joy, but now feels like an obligation. Now, let me tell you what Sarah did. She didn't walk away from Emily overnight. Instead, she took small steps toward detachment. She started setting boundaries, declining invitations when she felt emotionally drained. She stopped initiating conversations and gave Emily space to reach out if she wanted to. Over time, Sarah realized something profound. It wasn't Emily's responsibility to change. It was Sarah's responsibility to protect her peace. And here's the twist: Sarah wasn't bitter. She still cared for Emily, but she learned to care for herself first. That simple shift, choosing herself, allowed Sarah to focus on relationships that were reciprocal and fulfilling. Does this story resonate with you? If it does, it's because it's universal. We've all been Sarah at some point. We've all clung to a connection because of what it used to mean, hoping it will someday go back to what it was. But here's the truth: not all connections are meant to last forever. And that's okay. Some people come into our lives for a season, and their purpose is to teach us something, not to stay forever. Let me share another story. This one's about a man named Daniel. Daniel was in a relationship for 5 years. At first, it was magical. They built a life together, shared dreams, and imagined a future that felt limitless. But as time passed, Daniel noticed cracks in their foundation. Arguments became more frequent, and moments of joy became rare. He felt like he was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to make things work. When Daniel confided in a friend, he heard a simple yet life-changing question: Daniel, are you staying because you're happy or because you're afraid to leave? That question haunted him. For weeks, he wrestled with it until one day he realized the answer. He wasn't staying because he was happy. He was staying because he feared the unknown. Detaching from that relationship wasn't easy. It took months of courage, therapy, and self-reflection. But when Daniel finally let go, he discovered something unexpected: freedom. Freedom to rediscover himself. Freedom to explore what truly made him happy. And freedom to realize that letting go of one thing often makes room for something better. Both Sarah and Daniel's stories remind us of something essential: emotional detachment is not an act of rejection, it's an act of self-preservation. Their journeys might not mirror your own exactly, but the emotions they faced are ones we've all felt. The point of these stories is to remind you that you're not alone in this struggle. Detachment is hard because it means breaking a pattern, and patterns feel safe, even the ones that hurt us. But when we hear about others who've walked this path, it gives us permission to take that step ourselves. So as you listen to the rules we're about to explore, I want you to think of your own story. Who or what are you holding on to? And more importantly, what might your life look like if you chose to let go? Detachment isn't about erasing the past. It's about honoring the role it played and moving forward with the wisdom it gave you. If Sarah and Daniel could do it, so can you. Because at the heart of every story of detachment is a single truth: you deserve to be free. When we think about emotional detachment, it's easy to see it as a single, monumental decision. But in reality, it's not something you wake up and do in one sweeping action. Detachment is a journey, a series of intentional steps that lead you closer to emotional freedom. Let's walk through each of the 5 rules, imagining them as milestones along a path. Step 1, understand the why behind the attachment. The first step in any journey is figuring out where you're starting from. To emotionally detach from someone, you need to understand why you're attached in the first place. What's keeping you tethered to this person? Is it love, guilt, fear, or something else entirely? Imagine a traveler packing for a long trip. Before they can move forward, they need to sort through their belongings. They need to ask, what do I need to carry with me and what's weighing me down? Similarly, understanding your why helps you identify what emotional baggage you're carrying. Reflection is key here. Maybe you're staying because you remember how good things used to be, even if they're not good now. Maybe you're afraid of being alone, or you feel responsible for the other person's happiness. These are natural feelings, but recognizing them is the first step to releasing them. This part of the journey isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. When you understand your attachment, you're no longer operating on autopilot. You've taken the first powerful step toward reclaiming control over your emotions. Step 2, set boundaries that protect your peace. Once you've identified your why, the next step is to create a protective space around yourself. Think of this as building a campfire in the middle of a dark forest. The fire doesn't block out the forest completely, but it creates a safe zone where you can see clearly and feel warmth. Boundaries are like that campfire. They define what you will and won't allow in your emotional space. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop caring for the other person. It means you start caring for yourself more. This might mean limiting communication, unfollowing them on social media, or avoiding situations that bring unnecessary emotional triggers. For some, it might mean having a direct conversation to explain what you need. For others, it's a quiet decision to pull back without confrontation. At first, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. You might worry about how the other person will react. But remember, boundaries are not about controlling their behavior, they're about protecting your energy. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're taking another step forward on your journey. Step 3, rebuild your identity. Now that you've created space, it's time to focus on the most important part of this journey. Emotional detachment often reveals how much of our identity was wrapped up in the other person. When we're deeply attached, we sometimes lose sight of who we are outside of that relationship. Think of this step as finding a new map for your journey. Who were you before this person became such a big part of your life? What are the hobbies, passions, or dreams you set aside while investing in this relationship? Rebuilding your identity is a process of rediscovery. It's about trying new things, reconnecting with old interests, and leaning into the relationships that lift you up. Maybe it's taking a class, traveling, or spending more time with people who truly support you. This is where the journey becomes exciting. Every new experience is like planting a flag on unexplored territory, reminding you of the vast potential within yourself. Step 4, embrace the grief of letting go. Here's the part of the journey that many people try to skip: the grief. Letting go of someone you care about, even if it's the right thing to do, is painful. You might feel sadness, anger, or even guilt. That's normal. I think of this step as crossing a bridge. It's not the most comfortable part of the journey, but it's essential to get to the other side. The key is not to fight the grief, but to let yourself feel it. When you suppress your emotions, they don't disappear, they linger, making the journey harder. Grieving doesn't mean you've failed to detach. In fact, it's proof that you care deeply. Allow yourself to mourn what could have been, and then remind yourself why you're choosing to let go. Grief is not the end of the journey, it's a necessary step toward healing. Step 5, fill the void with purpose. As you reach the final stretch of this journey, you'll notice something: the emotional energy you once poured into this person is now yours to reclaim. What will you do with it? This is where detachment transforms into empowerment. Filling the void doesn't mean rushing to replace the person you've let go of. Instead, it means redirecting that energy into something meaningful. Maybe it's pursuing a passion you've put on hold, strengthening other relationships, or dedicating time to personal growth. I think of purpose as the destination of your journey. When you focus on what truly matters to you, the emptiness left by detachment begins to feel like possibility. You're no longer defined by your connection to someone else, you're defined by your connection to your values, goals, and dreams. Let's take a moment to imagine the life waiting for you on the other side of emotional detachment. Close your eyes if it helps. Picture this. You wake up one morning and feel a sense of lightness in your chest, a clarity in your mind. That weight you've been carrying, the one tied to someone who no longer serves your growth, is gone. You're no longer replaying old conversations or anticipating how they might respond to you. Instead, your thoughts are your own, free and untangled. You look in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, you see yourself not as someone defined by their connection to another person, but as someone whole, worthy, and strong all on their own. You smile, not out of obligation or for anyone else's approval, but because you feel at peace with where you are. As you move through your day, you realize something profound. Your energy has shifted. The emotional energy you once poured into worrying, pleasing, or holding on to someone else is now yours. Yours to use for creating, for loving, for living. You feel more present with the people who matter, more engaged in the activities that bring you joy, and more open to the opportunities that align with your purpose. When challenges come your way, you no longer look to someone else to validate your choices or emotions. You've built a foundation of self-trust and self-respect, and that foundation carries you. You've learned to set boundaries, not as a way to keep people out, but as a way to honor yourself and the relationships that truly enrich your life. Imagine the kind of relationships you'll attract now. When you've detached from someone who no longer adds value to your life, you create space for relationships that are reciprocal, uplifting, and inspiring. People who see your worth without you having to prove it. People who bring out the best in you and challenge you to grow, not because they need you, but because they value and respect you. And then imagine your future self a year, 2 years, or even 5 years from now. Picture the person you've become because you chose to let go. You've transformed from someone who felt stuck in a cycle of attachment to someone who walks with purpose and clarity. Your goals are no longer tied to pleasing someone else. They're tied to your passions, your dreams, and the life you're building for yourself. Your detachment has not only freed you from emotional chains, it has also taught you how to love yourself more fully. You've realized that you are enough, that you always have been. You've learned that letting go doesn't mean losing love. It means opening your heart to the kind of love that aligns with your growth, whether that love comes from within or from new connections you'll make along the way. Now, imagine the ripple effect of this transformation. When you choose yourself, you inspire others to do the same. Your courage to let go becomes a light for those who feel trapped in their own cycles of unhealthy attachment. You become an example of what's possible when someone prioritizes their peace and well-being. This is the vision I want you to hold on to. Emotional detachment is not the end of a story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you are the author, where you choose the direction, and where every choice you make leads you closer to the life you deserve. So as you leave here today, I want you to remember this: you are stronger than you think. You are capable of more than you believe. And when you choose to let go of what no longer serves you, you open the door to possibilities you never imagined. The journey isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Because at the end of it, you'll discover the most powerful, resilient, and authentic version of yourself. The question isn't whether you can let go. It's whether you're ready to step into the life waiting for you on the other side. And I believe you are. So go take that first step. Your freedom, your peace, and your happiness are waiting. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want to remind you of something powerful. Emotional detachment is not an act of weakness, it is an act of strength. It's not about cutting someone off or erasing memories, it's about choosing yourself, your peace, and your growth. Detaching from someone emotionally doesn't mean you've failed, it means you've made the courageous decision to protect your heart and honor your own well-being. Throughout this speech, we've explored 5 essential rules to help you along the way. We've talked about understanding your attachment, setting boundaries, rebuilding your identity, embracing the grief of letting go, and filling the void with purpose. Each rule is a step in the journey, each one building on the last. Together, they form a pathway to emotional freedom, a pathway that is uniquely yours to walk. But the journey doesn't end here. The real work happens when you leave this room and begin applying these rules to your own life. It's not going to be easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you question whether you've made the right decision, but I want you to remember this: you are worthy of peace, of joy, and of growth. The life that awaits you on the other side of detachment is a life that is lighter, freer, and filled with endless possibilities. The key is to keep moving forward. Every small step you take will lead you closer to the person you're meant to be. Every time you set a boundary or let go of a toxic attachment, you're creating space for something better to enter your life. And when you look back, you'll realize that letting go wasn't just about freeing yourself from someone else. It was about freeing yourself to become the best version of yourself. So I leave you with this thought: you have everything you need within you to detach with love, grace, and strength. Trust yourself, choose yourself, and know that every step you take toward emotional freedom is a step toward a brighter future.